and also in different countries. We need to look at ourselves and determine what are the margins that we have set up. What are the peripheries that we do not let people infiltrate? And what problems do they cause as far as education is concerned in our countries, in our world? What limits, what conditions do we have, even as people, whether it's arm's length or 6 feet? We need to determine what they are for us as individuals, what they are for us in our companies, in our institutions, and how do we tackle this problem of margins? Margins have been defined. If you have gone into ChatGPT, maybe you've gotten a variation of the definition, but on the periphery of the mainstream. What is our mainstream? Over the last couple of weeks, I've learned about some people on our panel today, and we've instantly built some relationships. Learned about the many different diversities that we have been able to represent, and learned about how we have taken actions in our lives in order to do that. So I'm here today to tee up this panel and definitely not try to introduce these fantastic folks, because they've done some amazing things in their lives, and they're going to share some of the experiences that they have. But while they're talking, I hope that you will basically think about that question. What is your mainstream? What margins have you set up? And what margins do you feel you are going to bring down in order to provide a more equitable education system? So we're going to start at the very end, and they're going to do a brief introduction of themselves first, and then we're going to hear from them in reference to their individual experiences of margins in our society, in our education, and how do they take action in bringing down those barriers. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Okay, it's a beautiful day. My name is Dr. Tadios Belay. I'm the president and CEO of U.S. African Institute. I'm originally from Ethiopia, but I live in Los Angeles, California now. I was a former refugee, left Ethiopia because of political persecution. This is 14 or 15 years ago. And I came to the United States, and I went to a number of schools, and most recently at USC, I did my doctorate on global education. And I have been doing a lot of work with historically marginalized and underserved communities, particularly in South Central Los Angeles area, to make sure that our students have access to resources, scholarship, mentorship, and access to college, universities. So that's what we do at the U.S. African Institute. It's a local to continental Africa project where we serve predominantly Black students in the United States, across the U.S., to make sure that they have access to support. And then our most recent project is focusing on increasing Black medical students across our medical schools. And that's what we do now at the U.S. African Institute, to make sure that our campus are diverse. In fact, my doctoral dissertation was focusing very much on the experience of historically underserved and marginalized students in predominantly white universities. I did a comparative study at USC, Stanford, Caltech, and Harvard University, where I see the the experience of black students, and the support they're receiving from the campus, and also the sense of, belongingness to the campus community. So that was, in fact, the reason for the establishment of the U.S. African Institute. Yeah, thank you so much.
Good morning. It's great to see everybody. Great to be here as well. My name is Alex Rand, and I am a middle school teacher. I teach middle school humanities as well as an adjunct professor at Mount St. Mary's University. My focus today is really about considering what is happening with my middle school students as they attempt to ingest curriculum. How do they see themselves within the curriculum? So in a moment as we move forward, I'll talk a little bit more about that, but just once again, thank you so much for being here. It's great to see you, and I look forward to connecting.
Good morning, family. Can we be family, or are we gonna make this whole thing weird? Family? Okay, so although I realize I just did something as a mama's boy, Mama said I can't talk to people like family without their permission to talk to them like family. Do I have your permission to do this like family? Okay, so this is how I'm gonna start. I do my best work in spaces where I feel safe, and there's a test I have for that. If you could please take your cell phone out for me, please, that would be awesome. I know you got one. Everybody's been working all morning in the hall. And then could you please do whatever you need to do with your phone so that your camera's on? Can you turn your camera on for me, please? And then can you do whatever you need to do so that your camera's facing you and take a selfie right now? Don't be fixing hair, just snap the picture. And then everybody do me a favor and say, funny till it's not funny. So at this point, if you want to delete the picture, you can. But here's what I want to point out to you. Funny till it's not funny. I ask you to take a selfie, and some of y'all hit me with the stank face. I don't do that. Meanwhile, you've completely ignored that for an hour. We got to sit up here and look at you. You don't want to look at you, you can turn your little chair around. For all I care, I still love you anyway. It's a safety test. Can we agree you have no idea what you look like to us right now? Just like we have no idea what we look like to you right now, and we respond to what it is we see? Can we just smile at each other for the next hour? Is that cool? All right, thanks. Oh, my bad. Who am I? I'm Bruce Wayne. No. Alonzo Kelly, trapped in Green Bay, Wisconsin, from Detroit, Michigan. Honored to be here.
Wow, what are you good all? You all are very, very good in connecting with the people. I'm not used to that in the Netherlands. I come from the Netherlands. My name is Alfons Timmerhuis, but you can just use my front name, Alfons. Timmerhuis is too difficult. Just keep it on Alfons. Well, what I want to tell you is that I'm a bit on the end of a long career. Officially, I have, yes, it comes back again. I am retired, but I wanted to keep on focusing on especially inclusion in the Netherlands, because that's rather a team. And well, I was experienced in inclusion because I did everything between being a teacher and being a kind of CEO for 32 primary schools. I was a consultant, I was a trainer, I did all kind of different things, and I wanted to use that to bring forward inclusion. And Michele, do you want to say something more about that now or later on? Now? Okay, now. Later. That's fine, thank you.
Hello, my name is Dr. Sueanne McKinney, and I'm an associate professor at Old Dominion University, located in Norfolk, Virginia. I was an urban teacher for 16 years, teaching grades 4, 5, and 6. And I noticed whenever whenever I would get student teachers, they always failed in my classroom. They weren't able to connect to my students. And that was the one goal that led me to begin my doctoral program. I actually wanted to get in urban education, go back to my school system, and help the teachers relate to the children and build relationships. Unfortunately, I ended up in higher education, teaching teachers how to teach in urban schools. Some schools believe in the urban pedagogy. Some higher institutions don't. They believe that a traditional teacher ed program prepares you for all environments, rural, suburban, and urban. But my dissertation disagrees with that. I actually investigated whether or not colleges of education are preparing teachers to teach in urban, high-poverty school environments. And I involved 2 universities in Virginia. And I think you know the results. No, we're not. We're preparing them for white middle-class schools. And so at my university for 20 years, I have tried to make a difference. I have gone into the urban schools with my students, teaching them about the culture of the students. We walk through the neighborhood, getting to know parents and the community, and opening their eye just to what urban teaching is all about. And unfortunately, we got a new dean who no longer wants to continue that type of teacher preparation. And so we're back to the generic teacher ed. If you get through our program, you can teach anywhere. And that's something that I don't quite believe in. Now, I can't let this fella, because I have a sense of humor too, okay? You have to teaching in an urban environment. So I want you to take a look at your selfies. I would do this with a mirror with my students. Okay, take those selfies out and say, I am the presenter's most favorite attendee. Did I top you? Did I top you?
Well, thank you, and I think you can see we have an amazing, illustrious, funny panel here. And how many of you are familiar with the term a glass ceiling? A glass ceiling. And so we are taught very early on, and especially here in the United States, ladies, I'm from Wall Street banking, that's my 1.0, and I was taught in order to reach the managing director position, I had to break the glass ceiling. Well, I found that to be very difficult to do. And I also found that if you break the glass ceiling, what you have is a lot of broken pieces, not connected, okay? So I went on a journey to build bridges. And I believe if we're talking about these margins, that we must try to build more bridges. So I'm going to go back to my panel. They're going to talk to you about how they have built bridges across these margins, across these divisions, that they have seen, and even some of the problems that they've also seen. So, all right?
Thank you so much again. In our country, we have so many problems, right? Especially in terms of accessing resources for historically, black, historically historically underserved and marginalized, students, and that was the mission for us. That was the reason behind, the work that, the establishment of, U.S. African Institute in Los Angeles, to be able to provide academic support, mentorship for black students, for Latino students, for African immigrants and refugee students. And it was my personal journey. When I was, in college, there was no resource, no academic support, culturally competent, service and support for students like myself, right? So I was able to organize our community members across the board, educators, my professors, people from different sectors. We were able to establish this organization, and now we're doing really amazing work in terms of providing different kinds of service. And recently, 50 students from Southern California area, they received the Congressional Award from the U.S. Congress. That was a big success for us. Even though we have like a very limited resources and funding for community organizations, like us, but still, we're fighting the injustice. We're fighting the inequities in this country, and then now we have the Supreme Court ruling against affirmative action. Our students, they don't have access to college, universities, right? So what we're trying to do is providing different kinds of academic support to black students, to Latino students, because we want to make sure that our campus are diverse, our campus are equitable, for everyone. So we've been very much successful in terms of also advocating for bills that promotes equality and justice on our university and college campuses. Like I said earlier, one of our prominent project is to increase the number of black medical students in this country. And if you look at the statistics, we're below 1%. You can see the workforce data as well. It's below 1%. Black medical doctors. So we collaborate and partner with a number of universities and colleges across the country. But one of them is Charles Drew University of Medicine and Science, which is a historically black college and university in this side of the country. So we do a number of partnership projects for to make sure that educators and also administrators they have the resource for our communities. So we aggressively advocate for our communities to make sure that we have access to resources and scholarship for our students. So we provide this service for high school students as well as college students and pre-med students to make sure that they have access to college and and in the university. So I think this is part of the overall fighting and struggle in this country for justice and equality. So without education, there is no way for us, to become successful in this country. So that's why we're working with a lot of community members. If you look at our board members, very diverse board members, very committed to support historically underserved students, refugees, immigrants, and Latino students, black students in South Central Los Angeles. This is the most underserved and under-resourced community in the country. So that's why we're targeting this area of our country to make sure that students, our communities have resources and access to college, to promote equality in our campuses. Thank you.
So, how many teachers are in the room? Okay, now, how many middle school teachers are in the room? Former counts. Thank you. Yeah, you said it right. Oof. Additional question, and this is more philosophical, is how do we get our students to connect with the curriculum? How can they envision themselves inside of the curriculum? And my work so far has shown me that a standard curriculum provided by any publishing house makes it very difficult. It comes down to the teacher in the classroom to really help bridge that connection. I'm very fortunate because the school I work at gives me complete creative license in my classroom. And so for that, I am able to see my students where they are and then help bring the curriculum to life. So one of the ways that I do that is with my 7th grade students, that's medieval history, which, initially the students like, what is this? This is too long ago, how could we possibly connect? But we're pulling out trends, and the standard trend is simply this. What does it mean to be human? What does it look like for humans to interact with one another? And then furthermore, how have humans interacted with each other throughout history? So when we're looking at medieval history, we can also then move forward to present times and look at current events and say, are these things similar? Are they dissimilar? Furthermore, with my 8th graders with American history, we really take an American studies approach. I have a background in American studies. And so we really look at the history of the United States from a cultural perspective. And in doing so, as was mentioned before, what we're looking for is not what happened in the mainstream, but what exists in the margins. What happened outside the mainstream? How are the unheard voices reacting and responding to what is happening in the dominant culture? What is the dominant culture putting out, and then what are the responses from the margins? So in a way, what my students are really doing is they are creating a way for them to envision themselves. And I should have prefaced all of this by mentioning that my classrooms are 98% Black, Latino. And so in that way, it's incredibly helpful, I find, in any case, for them to be able to start to think about not what is directly presented to them, but what do we think about everything around that initial idea or that initial piece of information. And one of the main things that I've done lately is at the beginning of the year, I ask my students, what would happen, or what do you think would have happened if the Americas had never been colonized by Europeans? And they have their ideas. They all have their ideas. And it's interesting how those ideas shift by the time we get to the end of the year. And my purpose of asking that question is very simple. My purpose is to allow them to envision alternate realities. And they do it all the time. Marvel Universe this and, XYZ, all the things that it's happening all the time in social media, in TV and streaming culture. So why is this something that we're missing when it comes to thinking about history? When it comes to thinking about the past? There was never any guarantee that we would end up where we are right now, with the dominant culture and the dominant paradigm being exactly what it is right now. It could have landed any other kind of way. And so my purpose here is to help my students think about, oh, that's right. these things could have gone in any direction. It just happened that this is where we are now. And furthermore, what that means is that moving forward, we don't have to follow this dominant paradigm if we choose not to. Thank you.
Family. So I am in the education space in a different, I am an economics guy. So full disclaimer, I do not have the answers. I just got a lot of questions. And I'm gonna start with this, with your permission, if I can be a nerd. There are 293 ways to make change for $1. 293. So the next time someone asks you for change for $1, hand them a roll of pennies. You're not wrong, right? But here's the thing, 2 rolls of pennies. Here's my approach to it. If you choose to take out your phone and type in 0.13 GPA, your phone's gonna take you to Baltimore. You have a young man who looks like me, who is about to graduate near the top of his class from high school with a 0.13 GPA. He passed 3 classes in 4 years, missed almost 300 days of school, and he's about to be valedictorian. Now, if you understand how the curves work, what do people behind him get? So here's what I choose to do with that. There's a lot of time. You can ask me how it goes later. I do not want to hog the mic. From Detroit, if you've never seen a city that filed for bankruptcy, it is something you need to witness. So when Detroit filed for bankruptcy, I typed in my mama's address and I bought my neighborhood. The whole thing. I own 63 houses around my mama's house. I only rent to single moms with a son. Every month mom pays rent, I take 2/3 of it and put it in a trust in her son's name. When he gives me a copy, you might want to hold the applause, but I appreciate that. When he gives me a copy of his high school diploma, I give him his mama's rent money back to go to college because it's important to me that he always tells people my mama did that. Now, here's what's in the lease agreement. I have my own FERPA statement. If he drops out of school, fails a grade, or I'm ever notified he's truant, I evict his whole family. I am not in the real estate business. So here's the question. If smart is, by definition, quick-witted, you know, people on game shows are smart, right? And intelligence is the ability to apply new knowledge. I have no idea what it means to be educated. But I do know this. I've been doing this for 10 years. My success rate is 0. So now here's where I need your help as we're passing each other in the hall. What is the best reason you can give me for a kid to graduate from high school? Because whatever it is for you is not what it is for them today. And I'll just give you my answer right now and pass the mic. I graduated from high school because I was too afraid not to. There's no way I was going home and telling my mama I'm not graduating from high school. Are you kidding me? Right? But what happens if a kid today is not afraid of his mama? So there, you can help me solve my problem. That's my contribution. I do not want this young man to get a high school diploma, apply to one of your colleges. He will get accepted. He will borrow $20,000. He can't read green eggs and ham. Multiply 4 times 3, but we're going to give him $20,000. We're going to look at him and say, you know, a $10,000 business loan is too risky. Why don't you take this 20 and go to college? How long is he in school? What happened to the 20? So he went to school poor, dropped out destitute, and I am not okay with that.
When I listen to my colleagues in the panel, I feel a little bit embarrassed because they are so good in explaining what they have found out. And for me, it's more difficult because English is not my first language. I'm not a native speaker. It's my second or third language. In the Netherlands, we speak Dutch, but we also learn to speak English and German and French. So It's a bit difficult. I hope you think so? Yeah? Okay, okay, okay. What I'm trying to explain to you is that I think that we should have a fundamental shift in looking at people in the margins. And when I think about that, I think about the Dutch situation. In the Netherlands, we have a very high degree of participation in special schools, like in Flanders, in Belgium. Netherlands and Flanders internationally are the highest in excluding children with disabilities. About 5% of all the children are in special schools and not in mainstream schools. And that's a problem. And the Dutch government is trying to change this. And they have to, because they signed that UN Convention on Handicap. And, well, they are trying to change it, but what they find out is that it's deeply into, it's deep in our culture, that exclusion on base of disabilities and special educational needs. And it's deep in our culture, because we believe that if you separate children with special educational needs and disabilities, you can give them the best possible support. You have the best support you could think of. And we think that's a kind of medical approach. I think that's a kind of medical approach. And with my experience in special schools, I'm trying to help schools to change that. And I want them to shift to a more open view on all the children. I believe that inclusion is not only on children with special educational needs and disabilities, which is the first thought in the Netherlands, but inclusion is for all the children. All the children have the right to participate in the curriculum. And if you want to do that, you have to look at the curriculum and the school system, and you have to find out where are the barriers for every child. And if you can find those barriers and you can remove those barriers, then you will have a more fair school system. And then I think that it will be possible to have more participation of children with special educational needs and disabilities as well. But I think it will take a long time, but it's a good job to work on.
I got to first start out by saying that there's a house in my neighborhood that if you want to add to your collection, okay, still has a mortgage payment on it, but you're welcome to add it to yours. And I think I want to come work for you. Okay, one book that truly changed my life was a book called Star Teachers of Children in Poverty by Dr. Martin Haberman. And I'm usually a shy person. And all the books I was reading about teaching in urban schools wasn't what I experienced as a white woman teaching black children. But when I read his book, it's everything I experienced. I normally don't do this, but I looked him up. He was at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, and I told him how much his book changed my life. And he actually developed an instrument that can tell whether or not you have the predispositions to be successful in an urban school. Now, knowing that, I took my classes at Old Dominion. I asked permission from the dean, and I asked if I could hold my classes in the inner city schools. And so when I was teaching classroom management, I actually held them at that particular school site. Then they would go into different classrooms, talk about what they see. I can explain what they're seeing and what they're going, what's going on, different strategies that they could try to implement with their children. But just actually being in the schools and teaching my class there was just one small step that I could take. And I truly was disenchanted when our new dean decided not to go that route anymore. And from that experience, say I would have 10 students in my class, I would get 1 or 2 teachers that decided that that was their calling, that that's where they want to teach. And although a very small number, I consider that a success, because that's 2 teachers that are going to be wonderful and be effective and build relationships with their students compared to none.
Fantastic, fantastic. So, in thinking about what we've heard already, I'm going to ask our panelists just to think about it for a second. One thing, one action item you will give our great crowd here today, our family here, okay, before they walk away. I told you I was in China for nearly 7 years, and it helped me to manage some perceptions. Over here in the United States, we are accustomed, if we want to go to college, either you're going to get that scholarship, and now they've taken away, some of our means of getting into some of the great schools over here, but we have some other great schools that we need to think about as well. But we think about financial aid. Yes? How many of you? Financial aid, yes? Student loans, raise your hands. Yes? Well, I was quite surprised. I had over 900 students over in China who went through my undergraduate program who had never heard of a student loan nor financial aid. So when they were graduating from their undergraduate program, I thought it was fantastic being a dean over there, and then I taught each one of those students and at least one course. And I thought, this is great. Got a lot of great relationships until they got ready to graduate and they came to me, Dr. Scott, would you write me a recommendation? So I wrote nearly 900 recommendations for graduate school over there. I learned that their parents, some fishermen, yes, some women who basically took off from their jobs to sit at home and help their one child study for their Gaokao exam. You think the SATs are tough? Whoa. Yes? So that child could do their best because they knew this was so important for them to move on and to get great jobs over there in China. You hear that China has exported more students to other countries than any other country in the world. And I think, why can't we do this here in the United States? Why can't we do this here in the United States? I look at the folks over there in the Nordic region, yes, and the Netherlands and countries over there, they lead in the world in social progress, which includes basic education, yes, and also looking at higher education as well. So why can't we do these things? That's the reason that we're here. I was here in December And I never walked away from a conference with so many ideas and so many innovations. And I look forward to meeting you and learning what you've done as well. It can be done. Yes, our young man there said, I don't have any answers, and then he gives you answers. Yes? Yeah? Not making him out to be a liar or anything, I know that. But I want the folks to go ahead and give you one takeaway, one sentence. Not sure if we can do that, okay? For each one of you that you'll give the audience today.
So, two, if
Already.
if it's allowed. Okay. So, a couple of, action items. One, please reach out to your city council members, members of Congress, that you are disappointed about the recent Supreme Court decision against affirmative action. So reach out to them to provide more resource for historically underserved students in your city or in your state. And action item 2, and again, please reach out to historically underserved students. And we are living in the richest country in the world, and yet we're not providing the necessary support and resource for the most deserved students. So please reach out to these students, show them how to apply college, how to apply scholarships and resources, or connect them to resources. So these are my two action items in terms of takeaway. Community is everything. Community is power. That's why we're here, to support each other and to learn from each other. And thank you so much.
Just 2 questions. First off, what is? And second, what could be? What is and what could be? When you have a clear idea of what your responses are to those 2 questions, now you go to work. Thank you.
Excuse me, regardless of age or degree, I'm a conversation person. I would like for you to have this conversation with people in your space. As a result of having achieved this educational goal, what do you assume will happen as evidenced by? As a result of having received this degree or whatever, what do you assume will happen as evidenced by that will lead to a conversation?
I was talking about a fundamental shift in looking at the pupils in the margins, and I think that means that we need a culture. For instance, in the Netherlands, we need a cultural change. And what I would like to give to you is that if you want to have a cultural change, that means that you have to be the best example of what should be.
And my words would be to have a lasting, meaningful, trustful relationship with all of your students, because you may be the only significant adult in their lives.
Fantastic. Well, I just want to leave you with 3 words, 3 terms. I'm a Six Sigma black belt, so I've learned a lot of Japanese terms. And one is ikigai. Make sure that you wake up with a purpose and do whatever you can so that the people who you're educating and you have relationships with wake up with a purpose as well. The second being Kaizen. Continue to improve. No matter where you are, no matter what you have achieved, continue to improve. and also be an example for that, for the people who you touch. And one thing that I learned is a word, Gemba, G-E-M-B-A. Don't try to fix something from the periphery. You need to go there. You need to experience. Thank you so much.